management overall, we're really great technical guys, but understanding the business side and communicating that business side always seems to be difficult for us. So this was something that I've had to learn over the last 20 years. So I appreciate that. A little bit about myself. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I've got a whole bunch of initials that mean nothing, but it feels good in my own insecure way. My latest one was the IAM Asset Management Certificate. Just recently got it. So that was a good accomplishment for me. Currently, I'm the reliability manager at the Smucker plant in Toledo. We do all the Pillsbury bakery products, including frosting, cake mixes, those types of things. So I appreciate that. So as an introduction, I'm here basis. We are a cost center, yes. When it comes to accounting, we are a cost center, yes, because technically we don't bring in any income, but it all depends on how you sell it. Okay, it's like a political campaign, speaking and making promises. The difference is we as managers, we can fulfill our promise and not just blow smoke. We also hear that maintenance is a necessary evil. It's a part of the job. They're firefighters. Is your definition of maintenance? It's always fix, replace, restore, whatever. When really maintenance is guarding or protecting assets. Okay. So one of the ways you go about doing it is you have to sell value. Okay, and as a manager, there's 3 levels of value that you have to understand and you have to sell to. Those 3 types are convenience, which is it makes life more quality product, makes life easier, makes life better, those types of things. You have process improvement, which is, running, fully utilizing your assets, minimizing downtime, those types of things. And then you have the financial piece, which is the freeing up of cash flows, reducing costs, profit gains, those types of things. So when you can wrap your head around those 3 types, you got to understand where you apply those to each layer that you have to sell value to. Okay? And there's 3 directions as a manager you sell value to. One direction is down to the subordinates. That's where your convenience, your safe, quality work environment, less stress, easier life type of values get sold to, unless you have an entire shop that's really, really driven, and then they want to see downtime reduction, those types of things as well. But convenience is probably the easiest way to sell people on the value of maintenance. Managing out, that's at your peer level, your ops manager, your quality manager, HR, all of the peers that you have. Being able to sell that value, you want to sell it in process improvement with your asset utilization, with your lower downtime, higher profits, those types of things. And then selling up, 95% of the time when you sell up above you, your boss and above, you're going to sell financial value of maintenance and what we have to offer. So again, managing down, you'll sell the value based on convenience of being a proactive maintenance department. Okay, your job is to also remove obstacles for those people, empowering them to do the things that they deem fit. Okay, and then overcoming, the objectives that people put in front of you, things that don't add value, being able to kind of shoot those down where you're in meetings, 78% of your day is one of the hardest things. And then not making excuses. Okay, try to be a solution provider. I understand how hard it is at times when your hands are tied and there's certain things you can't do, but don't make excuses. Don't use it as an excuse. And managing out at your peer level, you sell the value based on process improvement. You sell less frustration for their employees, for the ops manager, the the quality manager, all their employees, how easy life gets when things are more reliable. Offer to help train their employees. And this is one of the hardest things because we like to blame them for their incompetence. Okay, but we're the ones that are considered subject matter experts. And when we do the training, we determine the mindset, which is the way that I look at it. Is if I'm going to train operations, I'm training them with my agenda in mind so that they gain the same mindset as we do, and we're strategically aligned to gain to achieve whatever our objectives are. Okay? Understand the gaps. Okay? There's always gaps, okay, between whether it's employee competencies, systems, processes, whatever it is. Understand your gaps and then offer solutions to them to help fill those gaps. And develop a partnership. Okay? Operations is a customer, yes, but they're more a partner. It's a strategic partner. Because without us, they don't run, and without them, we don't have a job. So it's a partnership. It's not necessarily a customer relationship. But we can debate that, I guess. And managing up, you want to educate on the maintenance function. What is it that you do? What's your purpose? What value are you bringing to the table? And you want to sell that value financially. Okay? Getting to understand the business side of things, how to convert a failure that was early detected and how to convert that to dollars. Right? Understanding their vision and their goals and how you can mold your vision and goals to theirs so that they think that you're aligned with them. And then communicating your political campaign, and this is where we have the hardest time, a lot of us. And that's bragging about ourselves and our team and the good job that we're doing. Because we think we should be recognized for our hard work, and I get it, you should. But in the real world, we're not. So we do have to brag about it a little bit. As long as it's true, there's nothing wrong with bragging about it. When you're bragging due to ignorance, that's a whole nother thing. So some business basics I'd like to cover is, one is what is competitive advantage and why is it important? One is what is cash flow and why is it important? What's a cost savings versus a cost avoidance? There's a lot of gray area and a lot of confusion there. I'll try to clear that up. And then KPIs, things that we track. So why do we need to understand the business basics? And that's the most important question to understand, is because we have to be able to speak their language. They're not going to take the time out to learn what we do. So we have to convert what we do to their language and be able to explain it in their terms so that they understand it. The light bulb goes off. So what is competitive advantage? And there's two types of competitive advantage. There's comparative and differential. Okay, comparative advantage is basically like a price point. It's cost. Where differential advantage is my product is completely different than everybody else's, and that's my competitive advantage. So here at Smucker's, we produce cake mix. There's a lot of cake mix, a lot of competitors, a lot of private label, but for the most part, there's three. It's us, Duncan Hines, and Betty Crocker. Okay, so we have a comparative advantage. When you walk into Walmart, Costco, whoever, and you decide to buy our cake mix, okay, you assume that those top three brands, the quality is the same. Most people do. What they look at is what is the cost. Okay, if all of them are $1.29, there's very few people that are brand loyal these days. They just grab whatever, whether it's the package that they like, whatever. But if we're cheaper, then everyone is going to buy ours. For the most part, they're going to buy our product. Okay, so our goal is, in order for us to raise volume, we have to lower our cost to produce so that we have a competitive advantage and we can gain market share. Okay, So you have to understand what your competitive advantage is. If it's differential, it could be some sort of technology that you guys have that no one else has. That's your competitive advantage. You got to be able to speak to that. Okay? And then with competitive advantage, it gives you more stability as a company, and it's more sustainable in the long term. So cash flow, this was taken out of Philip Slater's book, but understanding cash flow versus profits, it gets a little hairy. You have to understand a lot there. But basically, cash flow is the amount of cash you have on hand after everything is paid for, okay, plus whatever you've tied up cash in. So the example I like to use is I own the storeroom here at Smucker's. So the storeroom is mine as well as maintenance. Okay, every part I put on my shelf, I'm tying up cash in the organization. Okay, when I started here, we had about $6 million in inventory. Okay, currently, we have about $4.5 million in inventory, and we're working our way back down. Okay, but we freed up $1.5 million in cash flow in the last year and a half. Okay, that's something that you can sell to the organization. How do we do that? We do that through planning and scheduling work, early detection of failures, okay, kitting the work, and taking care of it before it fails, so that I don't have to store 12 of them on my shelf because I'm worried that it's going to fail in the future. If we're predicting failures early enough and we're scheduling the work, we're kitting the parts, we have enough time to order the part from the manufacturer, I don't have to store it on my shelf. So we are reducing our on-hand inventory. That's how you free up cash flow. That's one way of selling that to the organization. So a cost savings is a legitimate benefit in the business case. It's a cost reduction. Okay, so I'll give some examples, but here's one here. So you have whatever brand of pillow block bearing. Okay, as long as it's the same brand, like for like brand, but say you get one from Applied and you get one from Motion. Okay, whichever one's the cheapest, you have a cost savings. Okay, so if the ABC firm here, we'll say that's Applied, if they want $100 for this bearing, and I can get it from Motion for $75, that's a cost savings of $25. And what I do is I capture those in a spreadsheet, which I'll show you later. Okay. A cost avoidance is when you avoid paying more for something else. So an example would be is I get that bearing for $75 from Motion, and I've been getting it from them, and next year they want to raise their price to $80. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to shop around because I'm not going to pay $80 for that bearing. And they said, well, never mind, we'll keep it at $75. Okay, you just avoided a $5 cost. Okay, so it's the same thing in the example I provided. The firm raises the price to $125. I say I'm not going to pay it. They say never mind, we'll keep it at $100. I just avoided paying that cost of $25. Another cost avoidance is downtime avoided. Okay, you can capture that as a cost avoidance. So if you knew that this certain failure over a certain period of time cost $100,000 to the company, but now you have predictive technologies and you've predicted it early and you fixed it before it failed, whatever the cost of that job was, minus whatever all that downtime was, that would be your avoidance. So if the job with labor and parts currently to fix it early cost you $10,000, and you knew the failure before it cost you $100,000, you now capture a $90,000 cost avoidance. So you capture those and put those in the spreadsheet as well. Opportunity cost is a little tricky. I don't like to get into this much, but it's comparing alternatives. I was going to go company A. I decided to go company B because they're a bit cheaper. In the long run, it cost me more. If I would have went with company A, what was my opportunity cost? But those things can work against you, so you got to kind of watch those. I would track them myself, but I wouldn't share them with anybody. Okay, so here's an example. A decision's made to run to failure. It ends up costing the plant $10,000 in lost production. If I did vibes every month on that piece of equipment, it cost me $30 a month. An example would be the opportunity cost was $99.70, but I wouldn't really brag about that too much because it's saying that you made the wrong decision. So you don't want to set yourself up for a PR failure. Okay? So here's some of the watch outs. You want to track it yourself, understand the decisions you made so you can make better decisions, but you don't really want to share it unless people are seeking advice or going with a certain brand or whatever. But it turns into a blame game with opportunity costs. So they're going to say, I told you should have went with this and blah, 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 and you get into finger pointing. It's not worth it. Okay? So some of the KPIs that we track here that I feel are important to show progress within our department when I'm selling it as a profit center is the dollars of maintenance spend to RIB. That's my maintenance budget divided by my RIB. My dollars in inventory to RIB, which are both metrics set by SMRP. And then maintenance cost per unit produced. That's huge for me because I want to understand what is my impact on the bottom line. And your maintenance cost per unit, ours currently, our goal is 17 cents per unit, and our current is 13 cents per unit. So we're 4 cents per unit cheaper year to date right now. Another one is utilities. When you're using the ultrasound's a huge one when it comes to utilities, is what I do is I'll capture it in a spreadsheet. We write the work order, we do the work, we complete the air leak, fixing the air leak. I'll capture that as an avoidance. Okay, but at the end of the year, when we look at utility reduction, I capture it again as a saving because we had a hard savings. If I saved the company $60,000 on their electric bill this year because of the things that we've done, I capture that, and I want to brag about it so that you show that that Ultra Pro for $10,000 or $15,000, it paid 4 or 5 over for itself. And it justifies headcount and those types of things to become more sustainable. So here's the nitty-gritty. So starting your political campaign, the goal is to capture as many cost savings as possible, cost avoidance as possible. What are the gains from your condition monitoring and your predictive maintenance program? And planning and scheduling, showing how planning and scheduling frees up cash flow, which frees up profits. Right? Defect elimination is another one. Okay? What are some of the best practices that you're doing to eliminate defects proactively in your equipment? Okay? All those can be quantified. You share your successes with the world. And this is the hard part, where you got to toot your own horn a little bit. Okay? So what I do is every month I send out an email. Okay? So I have a spreadsheet. We capture stuff on spreadsheets, and I email it out to a select group of people, everybody above me. And that's kind of how I brag about it. So here's some examples. Okay, a spreadsheet in the storeroom. I have my storeroom guys. They capture their parts. They always get 2 quotes, and they compare between 2 companies, like for like parts. I don't do a SKF bearing versus a China bearing. It's not apples to apples. I do an SKF bearing against an SKF bearing or whatever. It's always like for like parts. Okay. I also do in-house rebuilds versus sending things out to be rebuilt or versus buying new. We've started taking on more rebuilds in here now that our line efficiencies are going up, our downtime's going down, is freeing up our guys to do more work in the shop. So we're starting to take on rebuilds, and we're capturing the rebuild. Cost me $30 to buy bearings and slap in this gearbox versus sending it out or buying a new one for $1,000. So we capture that. The software provided with your CBM tools. Okay, ultrasound. The UE guys have done a great job with their spreadsheets. You could track everything in their system, and you use that spreadsheet. And whatever that avoidance is, you capture it. And then I send out the email. I always brag about early detection. I've taught everybody 10 times over here about the PF curve, understanding the PF curve and early detection. And the further you get down the curve and what the cost impact is, I do that all the time. So the key is early detection so that they understand that we have to have the tools to become reliable. And one of the biggest arguments I've had here with people in this organization is they say we have to become more reliable before we can afford to use these tools or before we can launch these new tools. And my argument to them is how can you become reliable without the tools? And so changing that mindset and trying to get them to understand that. Also, you can create a newsletter. I've seen it done. I'm not that artistic. I'm a pretty simple guy. But you can get fancy, send out a newsletter bragging about some of the things that you've done. Okay. So here's an example. Simple spreadsheet. Okay. The data was captured, who the old vendor and the new vendor were, what the part was, what the original cost was, the new cost, and if it's a savings or an avoidance. Okay, and these are cost savings. Your O-ring kit, we saved $10. You'd be surprised on all these little parts as you go down your spreadsheet and you add it up at the end of the month, and you've saved $25,000 or $30,000, and that's huge. Okay, $30,000 a month times 12 months. You can justify doing a lot of things. And that's something that we do. Okay, 1672 is my account code for the storeroom, but these guys hold on to this. Another thing is, this is the spreadsheet that UE provides. I just cut a little section out. But basically, we did the decibel reading, what was leaking. We have the work order. If it says NA on there, that's because we fixed it at that time. So we didn't put in a work order to have it fixed at a later date. But these have all been repaired. It's a big list. But it was right here, $17,474. Okay, it was identified and we repaired it, 100% repaired. So what I do is I take that number and I add it in to my spreadsheet with my storeroom stuff. I kind of compile it all together, and I'll send that out on a monthly basis, whatever that number is. We started doing this last August, and so from last August, the year to date till now, we've captured almost $1 million in cost savings and cost avoidances, and I haven't captured everything. It's hard to capture everything. You have to set aside time. You've got to get your guys engaged and get them to help you capture some of it as well. Here's another example. Okay, this is an avoidance. Okay, so we had a vacuum pump failure. This is one I wanted to give an attaboy to my guys for detecting it early and taking care of it right away. We had a huge safety issue the last time one of these failed. We had one blow up and it punched a hole in the wall with a chunk that came off of the vacuum pump. Okay, so what is the safety impact? I didn't even capture that in here. Okay, but you can put a dollar value on the safety impact. Okay, but this is an example. Yeah, so at the end of it, we avoided $8,000 by detecting this failure early. Okay. Another one is we're realizing that's huge on our end is through oil analysis. So we have huge gearboxes on our mixers and surge blenders. They take about 30 gallons of oil. And we used to, it was like a quarterly basis. Some we would do biannually, but it was $1,500 to replace oil, and we just did it on a time-based basis. Now that we're doing oil analysis, in the last year and a half, we haven't changed the oil once. The oil's still good. So every quarter or every 6 months, depending on what mixture it is, I capture another $1,500 in savings based off of oil consumption, which is a good one. It adds up. That was short and sweet. That's about all I got. I don't know if there's any questions. Doug, you go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I did have a couple of questions. Earlier in the presentation, somebody wanted some clarification on what's RAV?
Replacement asset value. So your controller, I'm going to give you back control. Do you want control, Doug?
No, go ahead. You can leave it there for a little while. Leave your email address up there.
That sounds good. So RAV is replacement asset value. Your controller or your plant accountant, they should become your best friend. Be down there asking them a million questions. What's the cost of downtime per hour? What's our overhead cost? Any financial figures you can get. More than willing to help you out. The guy that we have working for us here, he's excited because he gets to report all this up and say, look what we're doing at the plant. You know, we've saved $1 million in the last year. And those are bragging rights for those guys. But our replacement asset value, what that is it's if, say, there's a natural disaster, everything is destroyed in your plant, what does it cost to replace all of your assets at that location? Ours here is $93.3 million. Okay, so you take whatever your budget is, which my budget was $5 million last year, divided by the $93.3 million, and that gives you a percentage of RAV. And then they have standards depending on industry where your level should be at to be considered world class. So we're kind of in the middle, in between bad and world class. We're at that good level, and that's something that we struggle with here. Is if any of you have read the book From Good to Great, is we're good at what we do here, but good is the enemy of great. And trying to get people to say, okay, we're good at what we do, let's take it to the next level, that's probably the hardest sell here.
Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure I didn't lose you there on the sound here. Hey, another question came in. For the techs in your PDM program, do you train them in multiple technologies or do you use specialists?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we're doing it in phases. To understand where we were when I started almost 2 years ago, when I started, we had a planner scheduler and a storeroom buyer. It was wrapped into one role. Okay, so I had planner scheduler buyer all in one role, and I took my head count, I restructured my department. And out of that, I separated, I did it in phases. So phase one was separated my buyer, separated the planner scheduler role from the buyer role. So I have a buyer now and a planner scheduler. And within that restructure, I was able to create 2 positions. I call them reliability tech positions. So currently, with those 2, we're training them for all of the technology. Phase 2, we just hit here a month ago. I separated planner and scheduler. I now have a dedicated planner. I have a dedicated scheduler. And then I added another reliability tech. So what I've been selling to the group here at the plant is I would like to be 80% condition-based, which is a world-class benchmark. And currently we're about 10%. So we're taking lead line techs off of the line and converting them because we have 2 techs per team. And we have 4 teams per shift, so there's about 8 mechanics. But what I'm doing is leaving 1 to answer calls, and I'm slowly converting more and more over to reliability tech. So I would like to get to where they're specialized in one technology, but they understand the value of all of them. But currently, we're just kind of doing it all right now.
Okay, great. Another question came in. Do you do all of your condition monitoring and PDM tasks internally, or do you use outside service providers?
Everything except for our vibration, we do the MHRP program. But we have an agreement with them that over the next 5 years, they're going to help develop our technicians. So we have the Ludeca vibe analyzer that we're doing on our own, and we're doing the MHRP side by side, slowly winging them off and getting our guys up to speed to where they can analyze their own. So it's kind of a transitional period.
Fantastic. Joe, thank you so much. That's a lot of great information. Anybody who has additional questions, certainly feel free to email Joe or email at info@uesystems.com. Either way, we'll get these questions to Joe and we'll get them answered. Just a couple other quick things here. I'm going to take the presentation slides back and just bear with me 1 second. And just want to mention to everybody, you can certainly visit uesystems.com for information. Joe had mentioned they use ultrasound extensively for a lot of different applications over at the J.M. Smucker Company. So please take a look at our website for application information, leak detection, steam traps, electrical bearings, and in addition, training courses. Joe and his team have been gracious enough to host one of our training courses there at their company, one of our level 1 ultrasound certification courses, but we also offer steam trap examiner courses and coming soon some compressed air survey courses. So please take a look at the website for that. Get connected. There's a lot of great information like Joe shared out there with our UltraProbe users group and our Reliable Asset World group on LinkedIn. Follow us on Twitter. Check out our Sound Advice blog. So stay connected with us and stay connected with other people in the industry. As I mentioned, there's a ton of guys out there, like Joe, who have great programs in their facilities and be more than happy to talk to you and share some of the information they have. And also save the dates. Mark your calendars for next year. This year's Ultrasound World and Reliable Asset World Conference were a smashing success. We had great presentations there, a lot of opportunities for networking. So, save the dates for the conferences. We've also got a webinar coming up here next month, and that's going to be what was hot in 2015 and what's new for 2016 in ultrasound condition monitoring. That's going to be presented by myself and my colleague Adrian Messer. So please take a look at your email inbox and you'll see something shot out there in the next several weeks for that webinar to take place in December. I think it's going to be December 16th, actually. That's a Wednesday, but check on that. And of course, our conference is coming up in May of 2016, 10 through the 13th. It'll be our 12th Ultrasound World Conference and our 3rd Reliable Asset World Conference. So please, again, save those dates and stay tuned for future webinars and future activities. Thanks for everybody for attending. Have a great and safe day. Any questions, please shoot them to us by email.